mental fitness. That's really what we're here for. And I know that we've worked on mental fitness with LNH before. Dr. Shad was helping us with it, and Travis is a whole different level focused on it. He still thinks about the entire person. So he can go into other areas as well, just like Dr. Shad can. But he is incredibly amazing at the mental fitness part of it. And I've experienced that myself. Some of my kids have experienced that because they've been working with him, my wife. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the basics of mental fitness. I've been really impressed at what is possible once you start working on your mind and what you can do, how you get out of your own way, how you give yourself permission to do things. It's a pretty deep subject. And I've asked Travis to start with the basics because I didn't know the basics a few years ago, and the basics are incredibly powerful. And I would hope that everybody knows it. And that's why we're recording this, because I want you to know what's possible. And then you get to, of course, decide what do you utilize or not. And then we're going to have it out on YouTube and other ways that you can reuse it. You can pass it to friends, family, whoever. So it'll be basically open, and it'll be a series. We'll try to start off with the basics, but it's really being led by the group. So that's why I like having it live. That's what we're doing here live, because it's much more interesting and much more fun when we get engagement and people are asking questions. And then Travis will bring it back to, hey, we need to know these foundational things, right? So if we get off in the weeds, that's okay. This is going to be messy. So let's just tee that up front. Right. We're on Zoom. There's going to be power outages. There's going to be internet problems. We're going to get off track. That's okay. That's the fun part to me. So this is kind of a skunk works thing, which I know all of the LNH people are used to that. So it's going to be fun. With that, I'll tell a really short about where I started. So about 5 years ago, I was diving, and I'd had a couple panic attacks diving. I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And you don't want to have a panic attack when you're diving. So that's kind of what started me on this journey. It was about 5 years ago, after I'd had a couple panic attacks when I was diving in the ocean, in really rough oceans. And I went down this road with multiple things. And then I met Travis at 40 years. And I was there with my sister and my wife, and working with Travis. He was guiding us. And I figured out during that I'd spent quite a few years on this, but it came to light that I had a near drowning experience when I was an infant. And my sister was there, so she was talking about this, and I'm like, wow, that is exactly why this is happening. And that was pretty powerful, because then I understood why I was having this problem when I was diving in rough oceans. But then Travis helped me reset it. So I could go in and reset this to a different experience where I'm not having a panic attack, and I could keep diving. So that's how powerful this can be. I would qualify that with, you need to do the work, right? So I'm the only way that Travis can show me how to do it. He can work with me, he can show me different options, but it's something that you have to follow through with and do yourself. But it's also, or I shouldn't say but, that's one of the words I'm trying to get rid of, and it's also incredibly easy. So with that, I'm super excited about this for all of you, for everybody else that it spreads to, for any human being that's working on mental fitness. This is it's a very powerful area, and Travis is a pro at it. He's not only effective working with me, he was effective working with my wife and my sister and my family, which are all different and all have different things and different ways of going about things. And he's got an incredible ability to work with lots of diverse people, which I think is rare and very powerful. So with that, Travis, you want to finish your bio and take it away?
Sure. Thank you. I'm really, really excited to be here. This is such an awesome opportunity for a group of people like this to get together and talk about life, and talk about our journeys, and figure out where we're going, where we want to go, and what's getting in the way of us from getting there. I think our title here is Why Change is Hard and How It's Possible. I heard Mike say both of that. Why it's hard It's not just a snap of a fingers. It's like physical fitness. It takes effort. It takes time to move through it. And once you do, it feels easy at the same time. Before we get started, I want you to just sit for a minute. You can pipe in and answer if you'd like to say good morning or hello or anything like that. And I want you to think about what you are feeling or experiencing in this moment, or maybe in this morning or in this day or in this week. And I want you to see if a word comes to mind for you.
So we got some of the words that are coming through. Worry is coming through. Overwhelmed is coming through.
So I heard worry. It's a lot. I get a sense of heaviness, of tension. I heard overwhelmed, like a heavy weight.
Tired is one that popped up.
Tired. Thank you for popping in and sharing where you're at. I think a big part of this is going to be awareness, and we'll talk about all these things as we go. Go ahead and go to the next slide. My questions for you are going to be, where are you now and where do you want to move to? And so being aware of where we're at is critical and important. Does anybody want to say more about worry, overwhelmed, or tired? If you do, go ahead and pipe in. And if you don't, then we'll keep moving through. So some of my questions are, why are you here? What do you want to get out of this? Why did you decide to pop into this? And I know there's, okay, I want to hear about this stuff. Okay, great. But what is it that you want to hear about, and how would it affect you and impact you? My questions are, where are you now and where do you want to move towards? I hear worry, overwhelmed, and tired. I'd probably be like to not be worried. If we're not worried, what place would we be in? Calm, peace, comfort, secure.
No other comments in the chat at this point, but as they come in, I'll let you know.
Learn to be informed with current events, but not worry or fear. Beautiful. So how to accept reality for what it is, right? To be informed, not be ignorant, but to not be worried by it. I think that's beautiful. I think that's exactly what it is. It's not a place that we're ever going to. Everything is perfect, because everything's never going to be perfect, but it doesn't have to change us inside. Self-growth, awesome. Gage, I would ask from what areas of your life need to grow? What part of you?
There's plenty of areas of growth. Always looking, never stop learning, always keep growing, and always keep trying to improve yourself. That's the key to all this mental fitness, is to focus on what's wrong and how to fix it, and get provided the tools to fix it.
I might ask some questions on what's wrong and how to fix it.
Nothing, just balancing. I'm just saying self-growth for me would be to balance work and family life, and grow relationships while growing my work balance.
Had another one. I want to be able to separate my worries and eliminate as far as what is necessary and what it isn't. Got it. To be able to we can't control everything, or there's probably a level that we can't control anything. And how do I come to a place of peace and acceptance with the things that I can't control, and put my efforts and time into the things that I can? Kind of shortcut. The only thing that we can is ourselves, right? That's the only thing that I have control of. And then there's probably a level of, well, I don't even have control of that. Or maybe it doesn't feel that I do, because I don't want to be worried, but I am. I don't want to be stressed, but I feel stressed. I don't want to feel overwhelmed, but I do. And then that's, well, I can't even control myself. And there's a level of, yes, that's true. And there's a level of that there is a lot that we can do as well. And so how do I sit in peace and acceptance of what is, and focus on what I can change, what I can move, and not allow myself to be overwhelmed by the things that I can't? Let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. That's working on yourself and not you know, I had a lot of trying to control other people, you know, trying to take responsibility for their, you know, how they're feeling or how they're acting, and being able to let go of that was huge for me. You know, I can control my own behaviors and what I say and do, but I really can't with others. That was a big step for me. And then be aware of where you're at. You know, I was really good at not acknowledging where my you know, what emotions I was having, right? I didn't even, when you first started talking to me about that, I was like, yeah, I don't have those other emotions.
Right.
Well, I did. I just didn't realize it. So that was interesting and powerful.
Right. And kind of like a problem in your company, the problem that you're not aware of is probably your biggest problem, right?
Sure. That was
Or more of a problem.
good stuff.
Just simply becoming aware of it, then we can see it, we can move it, we can change it, we can take action on it, or we can just accept that there is no action to take and it just is, and that's okay.
Yep.
I got another one. Getting caught up in what others my age are achieving instead of being happy and content with where I am and what I have accomplished. Oh, cool. You guys are bringing heavy stuff in. That's good. Thank you. I think that's probably one of the things that we could all honor this as most as possible, is to just be real, right? To just, I don't have any desire to sit here and talk about things that are of no impact to us. I want to talk about the things that are real in our lives and in your lives. Stop overthinking and living in the moment. Cool. Thank you, Stacy. Those are some interesting ones. Overthinking. I think we get caught up in thinking a lot. I think thinking is a beautiful thing, and it's one tool in the toolbox. And what I heard from Mike earlier there was, what feelings, what are that? I don't have those. I don't have those emotions or anything like that. We do. It's just there's so much noise in here, we're not able to connect with it. And feelings, there's a level of feelings, our body, and we're disconnected from our own body. And we're stuck up in our head. And there is beautiful and powerful wisdom. And this is part of me intentionally just slowing things way down at the moment and just allowing it to sink into, what am I really feeling in this moment? And connecting in with that, not the chatter that's trying to figure out what I'm feeling, like so much that I actually don't get to feel. And when we're able to bring that down and connect in with it, then there's a whole new level of wisdom, of relationship, and our internal world starts to become like a really beautiful, complex internal world with different inputs here. And I would say all those different inputs are so valuable and important, and we will dive into a lot of those here as we go. But we're where most of us are, like we're cut from the neck up, and we're just in our head over spinning. And there is a level of awareness of what's going on down here, but we're not actually connected or engaged with it until it starts to have problems, right? Until I start to have health issues, and then suddenly we become engaged with it. And there's beautiful connections, and we're talking about fitness here, which we're going to dive into a second, and physical fitness and mental fitness, and how they are interconnected, and how the body is almost like the scorekeeper for the emotions or for what we feel, and it ends up coming out in our body one way or another. And so connecting in with what we're feeling in the moment is powerful. There's also a level of just stepping into it and feeling through it starts to dissipate it. You're like, okay, I'm feeling worried, right? I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling out of balance. All right. Yep. That's what I'm feeling. And just feeling into it allows it to move. If it's feeling, oh, I'm feeling, no, I can't. And then I start to move quickly into my head and back all the other things why I should do, as opposed to just being with it. It's like when you're sad or upset or trying to talk to someone about something, and they just keep giving you solutions over and over again to like, well, have you tried this? What about that? And do this. And sometimes Sometimes that's the right answer. And sometimes you just need someone to sit with you and be with you and just hear. And just hearing, just that other person listening moves it. Suddenly we become less angry. We become less frustrated. It's not that the thing actually changed, but it's the way we feel about it that has changed. And that's ultimately what it is, right? Because we can't change the outside world. There's a great quote or saying in I think it's the kind of the Buddhist philosophy of like, when you find the world rough and harsh, you can try to like smooth over and fix the world by covering it with burlap, which is soft. Not really soft for us, but I guess it was soft back then. Or you can wrap your own feet. And I think this is a bit of like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed by the world, and I can either go out and try to fix all the problems in the world, which is never going to happen, or I can bring warmth and comfort and safety within myself. Cool. Mike, you got a hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to share one of the things. For years, I would always let my head trump everything, right? And a few years ago, I started listening to my head, heart, and gut, and balancing it out. So for decisions, personal or business decisions, I'd say up until 5 years ago, I was defaulting to whatever I thought, right? Use the head. And now I don't. I listen to my heart and gut, even though a lot of times I don't know why my heart's telling me I shouldn't do that, or my gut's telling me that's a bad idea.
Right.
If I get all three of them checking and the go, then it's a go. If I have two of them saying no, then I don't do it. And if I've got one of them saying no, then I might look a little further. But doing that and allowing myself not to have to know why my heart or my gut is saying no was really giving myself permission to let them veto the decision was big for me. And it's led me, after years of doing that, it's led me to what you just said, and that is a easier understanding of why. Because now I can ask, well, why? Why is my gut telling me no on that? Or why is my heart telling me no on that? And the reason shows up.
Right. And what I'm hearing from you is oftentimes the heart or the gut knows before the head knows why.
Absolutely.
And what I'm hearing is the reason shows up later. Like there is a reason in there.
Yes, that's powerful. When I started doing that, I'm making way better decisions that don't blow my life up.
Right. Yeah, I think.
And the permission that, yeah, I don't know why I'm saying no, but it's a no, right? The permission to do that was huge. Right. Because before, if I couldn't explain it in a way that could be written down and understood, I wouldn't, I felt like I had to explain it or say yes. And now it's like, I'm not going to do it.
Right. There's some beautiful examples in some of my background's in military and martial arts and self-defense and all that kind of stuff. And there's lots of powerful studies and experiences of people's instincts always know something that is going to happen before it happens. And people get in trouble when they don't listen to those instincts. And there's beautiful and powerful and amazing stories of people that have avoided things by moving across the street or by not getting in that car, whatever it was, not listening to this person, that they had no reason to not get in that elevator, but they decided not to. And then other things came in. And I think this is a bit of learning how to get out of your own way.
For sure.
Learning how to experience kind of the flow of all the things that make us human, not just our rational, logical thought. That's beautiful that as the president here of the company that's got to make really powerful decisions, you've taken into the step that all of these matter. Head, heart, and gut need to be in alignment. And if I don't, it's pause until the information comes, and then, got it. Yeah, there's something in here.
Yeah. Works way better. It's powerful.
Well, another one popped up. Anxiety over feeling like I won't be accepted for being myself, feeling inferior to others. Oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing. Anxiety over feeling like I won't be accepted for being myself. Ooh, if I can't be myself, who do I have to be? Who do I have to be accepted? I have to live in a way that doesn't feel true to myself to be accepted by others. Part of where we're at right now is, who are you? What is your story? What is your why? My questions would be, if you had a magic wand to change anything about your life, what would it be? That last question, some of that comes to me is, how do I live in a way that's honoring to myself and to the world around me? If I have to make a choice, right? I that's a little bit what I hear in there. And if I'm wrong, please pipe back in chat. Of like, I have to choose to be true to myself or do what other people expect of me. How do I live in a way that's that's honoring to myself? And allows me to function in the world in a way that's feels right. Maybe you react too strongly or not strongly enough. Maybe you've spent your time chasing things that don't matter, avoiding the things that really do. Maybe you want to be more resilient. Knowing what is the right thing to do. Cool. Thank you, Billy. Knowing what is the right thing to do. There's so much in that question. What is the right thing to do according to who? What is the right thing to do for me? What is the right thing to do for you? How do I know? So maybe even what parts of me, that's what I was just hearing that might give us a great example. Like, well, my head says there's no reason not to do this deal or whatever it is, but my heart and my gut say, no, don't do this. Which one do I go with, right? And I think might give us a beautiful example of like, pause, step back, allow why I'm feeling this way to emerge to the surface, and then I can make a decision about what feels right to me in that moment. I think that's a great way. And that's a lot for this slowing down in this moment. I know there's a whole ton of information. I can throw a lot of information at you, but if I could do one thing that would be the most powerful thing in this moment is for you to connect to you. And sometimes that means just how do I feel in this moment? Because my view is there is no right thing to do. I can't tell you how to live. Nobody can tell you how to live. And I don't think there's a right thing or a wrong thing to do almost ever. It's what matters to you. And I think that barometer, if there's a right and a wrong thing, I think there's a right and wrong thing to you. And I think when you are fully connected with head, heart, and gut, as Mike gave us that great analogy in there, then you will know what's right for you. And generally, most people, especially in a company world here like this, we're listening to this, and we're not listening to the heart and the gut in here. Or we discount that. Oh, that's just, whatever. Feelings and emotions, and those don't really matter. And I have a good logical reason why I should do this, or I have a good logical reason why I don't. But then maybe there's this feeling that I can't shake, but then I just do it anyways. And I think that's where some of the trouble gets between. And then you start to not trust yourself. And then maybe we beat ourselves up and we overthink it. We overthink it beforehand. Some of the other questions are, what are the areas of friction in your life? What does being more mentally fit look like for you in your life? Or maybe life is fantastic and you just want it to be more fantastic. Great. What does more fantastic look like? I would change how I see myself. I know we are our biggest critic, but I feel like I take it to the extremes. I have to get out of my own way. Beautiful. Thank you. I would change how I see myself. How I see myself. It's not that there's anything wrong, but I see that there's things wrong. I hear patterning other people's words, other people's thoughts. So I hear the comparison to other people comment that came up earlier. I'm not like this person or like that person or like this other person. And that's what is awesome. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you powerful and beautiful. And denying that, stepping away from that, I think is probably our biggest tragedy and greatest mistakes. In Greek, there's a temple that there was the temple where people came from to seek like great knowledge from all over the world. And that's where our quote, "Know thyself" comes from. It's inscribed at the temple. And it's essentially says like, you came here for this, all this great knowledge. But if you don't know the knowledge within yourself, like you are lost. Like all of the secrets of the world are right here in there. And it's like, you've come for here, but sorry, you came to the wrong place. Like turn and look inwards. That's where your answers are. Imagine if you tracked halfway across the world and on foot, and that was the answer you got. When you get there, you might be a little disappointed. I thought you were going to tell me the secrets of the world. It was like, if you can't understand the secrets of, you know, in your own house, how could you imagine seeing anything else?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on that because I think, and we can expand on this a little bit, but the love thyself is where that's, you know, that's a biblical, and I'm not really religious, but I'm spiritual. But you find that love thyself in a lot of texts and a lot of smart people, and I believe that you have to figure out how to love yourself, warts and all, right? And then you can love other people, and then you can love life. I think it's a 3-step process, and I think we all owe it to ourselves. Now that can sound a little bit selfish, but it's really not. I mean, you really have to figure out how to love yourself, and it starts there. If you don't love yourself, you probably have a tough time loving others and loving life. And then I think the other thing that has to do that I've been focusing on is unique ability, and focusing on people's unique abilities and having them work in their unique abilities rather than focus on what they're not good at. And there's a really bad habit in our culture of finding what I'm not good at. And, you know, I poke at it, my dad pokes at it, whoever, my boss pokes at it. Right. And that's not the actual right way to do it. The right way to do it is say, here's all my unique abilities that I'm naturally amazing at. How can I set my life up to utilize those and focus on those rather than these other million things that I'm not amazing at? It's a lot packed into that, but
right.
I think it starts with love thyself, which has been written about forever. And I think it's, you know, it's very important and a good starting place for anybody that doesn't.
Right. Yeah, I think all the deep and powerful truths have already been said and already been written, and we just rediscover them as we go. The warts, I would actually say you haven't found the purpose of the wart yet, if you still call it a wart. I think the warts are your unique strengths and abilities, just not yet discovered. It kind of reminds me of all the superhero origin stories, right? They think it's this curse until they figure out how to harness it and use it, and then they realize it's their superpower, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I would say that with all parts of yourself. Like if you feel, if you're shaming parts of yourself still, then you do not yet understand that part. And I think, yes, we shouldn't force ourselves to work in the areas that we are not most comfortable. And sometimes if it's not from just, I don't prefer that, like I prefer to work in this way versus that way, then it's, if it's out of shame, or if it's out of usefulness or uselessness, or we don't think this is a part of us. Even, you know, anxiety, right? Like anxiety is really aware. Like you're very aware of your surroundings, and it could come. And anxiety has a level of too much, right? Too aware. But when we taper that and tone that down, then we have a ability to be in tune and in touch with our environment and others. We can view it as a gift, or we can view it as a curse. In airborne school, I guess I'll get to my background here next. Learning how to jump out of a plane, like they, one of the funny sayings I heard is like the day that you are no longer afraid to jump, you need to stop jumping. And there's a great book called The Gift of Fear. And we can view it as this like curse of this fear, anxiety work, when you use this gift, like this great information that's coming to me. My body is preparing me for something because it senses danger, and it's alerting me to the presence of something. When things get off is when I'm getting alerted to every noise, every little, you know, bee that comes around, right? When I'm getting too many alerts. And there's ways to change that, to tone that down. But the actual heart of it is a gift, right? And this is where I say the wart. It's not a wart. It's not a defect of you. It's a beautiful thing about you, that you have this incredible awareness and you are so in tune to your environment that you hear every noise. Then the tempering of it, of the learning how to harness the superpower, so it's not a curse but a gift, is being able to then use it as opposed to it using you. So, right, thank you. I've noticed that, and I've noticed this, and I've noticed all these other things. And then now I have a choice of what I want to do with it, opposed to it is in a place where it's overwhelming of me. Okay, so who am I? Probably a good time to talk about my background. So my role here is just be a guide to help you move from where you are to where you want to be. And that the work we do is as simple as that. How do you want to be? And then what's getting in the way of that? And that's kind of where we start the work that we do. And I say, how do you want to be rather than what? You'd be like, oh, I want to be, have all these things. And usually I think most of the time we spend our lives chasing the thing or the what, and it's not really about the thing or the status or the whatever it happens to be for you. It's about how I will feel once I receive that thing. And so that's why my question is, how do you want to be? Like, I want $1 million or whatever, this next level of finances. Okay, great. It's not actually that next level that you want. It's how you'll feel when you reach that next level. Because once I reach there, then I can finally relax. Or then I'll have my own, I'll feel free and not constrained. Then I'll know that I'm valuable or worthy because, I can prove it here. And it's not actually the thing that you're going for, it's the how you will feel when you achieve the thing. And I would actually say that most of the time, how we feel when we achieve the thing is temporary if we don't do the work internally. And then if we do the work internally, we actually don't even need the external anymore. Like a beauty pageant is coming to mind of someone that doesn't know that they're beautiful. And they look in the mirror and they see someone that is not, and they wish that they were. And so they go to a beauty pageant or something and they get all these awards and they're like, oh, I am beautiful. And then it only lasts so long. And then they go back to feeling not, and then they have to seek out more things that confirm, that outwardly confirm it. Really, what's going on is I want to feel beautiful. And that doesn't depend on external circumstances or other people's thoughts. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, because I don't think I answered who I am at all. I said I did, I answered what my role in here is, and if you choose to do some one-on-one work together, what we'll do. In short, I help people become physically and mentally fit. I've got a really diverse background, and I think that is part of the uniqueness and the magic that I bring to this work. And I absolutely love what I get to do. Education and training is in psychology. I worked in a crisis clinic, and I worked in a bunch of psychology type settings. And I've also spent time in the military during graduate school. I left and went and joined the military after 9/11. And there's a long story behind that, and I'll save that one for another day because we're short. But I went into the Army Special Forces, or the Green Berets. I spent years Green Berets, and then was ultimately injured for first deployment and training in there. And then I left and was hired as a contractor for the state military department to train other people. I have always spent this combination of both like hard and soft skills, right? So I've worked in search and rescue and firefighting, and like really deep, and knowing that you can almost call that like the physical fitness side, and then this really deep mental fitness, knowing that actually that was what is at the core of it. And both as an instructor and going through myself, there was a lot of, everyone that showed up to these programs were all incredibly physically fit. That was a requirement. And I think the program I went through, there were several hundred, and by the end, there was only 26 of us left. It's fascinating and powerful and wonderful and beautiful to figure out, like, why did these ones make it and these don't? And essentially it comes down to mental fitness, the deep things, the deep whys, the deep knowing of yourselves underneath that made the difference between people that were resilient and able to make it through extreme difficulties and not. And in that experience, I got to move to the edge of human limits of what people are capable of and not capable of, and what happens when we reach those edges. And I spent the last 10 or 15 years continuing to push that edge myself. I'm a martial artist and an athlete, and ran a training center where I train people to be both physically and mentally fit in there. And I've had a lot of people seek me out to help them do the same. I also study in Qigong, and I've studied with cultures all around the world, seeing different healing practices, different rites of passage, understanding energy and life. I think my broad perspective, a bit of what I did in fitness, was studied 15 different modalities and then found the common threads in each of them. You know, what is it that makes each of these things work and do what they do, and then bringing that, distilling that down into it. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. That's probably enough about me. If anybody's got questions, you can throw it out there. Otherwise, we'll move on from there. I'm available for one-on-one coaching sessions, as Mike talked about. There is a link up there on the screen, and I think everybody has been emailed a copy of the link. That will be easier too, since that's a long web address there. But that's direct to a scheduler that you can just go on and you can book it and you can schedule it right away. Go ahead and let's move on to the next. Okay, so what is mental fitness? I think our quote down there is, if you can't read it, is this just the way I am? And I think that's, in some of my conversations with Mike, a lot of the way people feel. And it's kind of funny, you think about physical fitness and mental fitness. And physical fitness, no one would say like, oh, I don't have strong arms or strong legs, and that's just, the way I am. It's like, well, no, it's because you don't train them. You have to practice them. You have to go on runs or do more exercises to strengthen those areas. You're to increase that or to change that. But in mental fitness, I think there's a little bit more of a fixed, it's just the way I am. I just am not a patient person. I am just an anxious person. Whatever it feels, however you are, the message that I want to hear right now is it's not fixed. It's not something that you were born with or not born with that you just can't do anything about. Just as in physical fitness and mental fitness, these are all things you can train, practice, and move towards. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So fitness, what does the term fitness mean, period? And fit just means capable or able to survive and thrive in a given environment. And we're talking about physical fitness, then I think there's a kind of a funny question of like, who's more fit? The marathon runner that can run 30 miles with no problem, but probably couldn't, pick up a 50-pound bag of concrete without hurting their back, or the power lifter. And if you can't see, if you're listening on, I've got a couple images up there of that. And we're like, well, which one's more fit? And it really comes down to, well, it depends on what it is that they're doing. And then you start to look at, what are we talking about being fit for in mental fitness or for life? Or are there core components of mental fitness just as they are as physical fitness? So we might say, well, to be a truly fit, physically fit individual, I want to be able to do all of these things, not just lift things, or not just run, or not just be flexible, or not just do one specific thing. But if I want to be fit in general, that means kind of capable and ready for whatever life throws at me. If I've got to go climb a tree to save a cat, I can climb a tree. If I got to drag somebody out of a burning building, I'm strong enough to drag them. If I've got to limber through something, I'm limber and flexible enough to move through that. And so we might start to see some dimensions of fitness, or different categories or components that would make up a physically fit person that is capable of doing whatever physical task is necessary. And so when we're talking about mental fitness, we're talking about, what does that mean, right? So I really feel all of my emotions. Okay, great, that's one. Or I can really think through things really intensely and deeply, but I can't feel anything. Or I'm a great listener, but I'm not a great speaker. I'm a great leader, but I'm not a great follower. Whatever it is, like, what are the different components of mental fitness in here. And just like in life, you know, we wouldn't want to be the power lifter that can do this one thing unless you're just built for that one thing. But when we're talking about being fit for life and capable of handling all that life brings you, there's probably going to be a spread of components that we will want to be strong in, that we want to be capable of and moving through. And I think we are all a bit like the marathon runner and the bodybuilder, and I put some extreme pictures up there of that's it. Like if we can see physically, right, the differences in there. So much on the mental side, we tend to pick our favorites, right? I like to be up in my head, or this is the way I deal with things. And just like these slightly misshaped, odd looking bodies that we have up in there, we do the same kind of internally. Like Mike gave us that great example of like head, heart, and gut, right? It's not like head or just heart or just gut. It's head, heart, and gut. So some of my questions are, what are the areas in life that you want to improve to enjoy life more? And some of the topics that we'll cover, as Mike said in the beginning, this is our introduction. This is talking about what it's all about and diving into some of the basic concepts. Some of the things that we might explore is like neurophysiology, your nervous system, what's going on in your body when I'm flooded with anxiety or emotion, or I'm suppressed and I don't feel any emotion at all, or I'm just stuck up in my head and I'm overthinking all the time. So neurophysiology and emotions, and I might connect those two. What are the different brain states that there are? Because if you look at a spectrogram of our brains go from 0 to 40 hertz and probably higher, that's just what we measure right now. And if you hook somebody up with some of the electrodes to be able to doing, you can see like where on this spectrum that they are. And based on where on this spectrum that they are, you can kind of know what their level of thinking is. And there's always a bit of a kind of a bias to however I think and feel right now, that's the way I'm always going to think and feel. But then we switch and suddenly we feel somewhat radically different. But understanding brain states is a really powerful thing in there, and understanding your physiology and how it works, and then how you can shift and make changes within it. Breath, I think, is another thing on this list. There's breath and body practices. I'm going to call it like top down and bottom up. And what I mean by that is we can make change by working from the top down. I might not know why I feel this way, but there's certain things that I can do that can shift feeling this way, or getting down into the bottom of understanding why you're feeling a certain way shifts how you feel in the body and works its way up in there. We can talk about family and relationships. We might talk about language, peak performance or flow, physical fitness's connection to mental fitness, breath and body practices that are incredibly powerful. One of the short things on breath of when I first got the breath work, I was like, oh, like stupid breathing. Like I hate breath work. And a colleague sent me a video for some Qigong stuff of this breath work practice. And I was looking at Qigong as like movement, like cool stuff. And it was just strictly breath. And I didn't want to do it because I felt like sitting around breathing, that sounds like a big waste of time. I could do, something else better with my time. But the breath is the access point to your autonomic nervous system, or the things that you can't control. So I can't really control my heart. I can't say, body, stop being anxious. And probably the more I think about being anxious and try to stop myself from being anxious, the more anxious I become. There's things outside of our conscious control. And but our breath lives in both. Our breath is both we have conscious control of, and it is something that when we're not thinking about it, it just happens automatically. And if you start to examine like brain states and physiological states, the breath will have certain patterns in those different states, and you can shift yourself into those different patterns simply by shifting your breath. So I can't make my body feel not anxious, but I can breathe as if I was calm, and breathing in as if I was calm will start to bring my state into my body into a state of being calm. We might talk about different cultures, religions, and myths, and I might just say wisdom from different cultures around the world, understanding how different people live, how different people view the world and think, and the different philosophies that they've brought is incredibly important. And then we're going to throw it out to you. What do you want to learn about? What are the things that you are interested in, passionate about? And that could be things you throw in now, or you can email in and we'll kind of formulate our next topics from there. Go to the next slide. How you became who you are today. So you are really simply a combination of your biology and your experience. And so your biology is your DNA. There are things inherent to all of us. We all have a drive to live, to breathe, to eat fatty foods or sugary foods, a preference to stay out of cold water, to all sorts of DNA preferences. You might have you prefer this thing versus that thing, and it can come through biology, or your height, your physical characteristics. There's a lot of things in there. And a combination of your experiences too. So you are who you are today because of the experiences you've had in life, in addition to the DNA and the biology. Do you think dogs are awesome, or do you think dogs are horrendous creatures? When you see a dog coming, do you run and hug them because you love them, or do you keep them away because you had a bad experience with dogs? Does the world feel safe to you, that you are like, oh, I just can't I can't wait to wake up in the morning and go in the world and explore? Or do you wake up in the morning and feel fear and trepidation about stepping outside that door? Are people to be fundamentally trusted? Are people trustworthy? And yes, you trust people easily, or do you have a hard time trusting people? It probably has a lot to do with the experiences that you've had in life. When you put those two things together, the things that you were born with is these inherent things that are particular to you and particular to us as human beings that we all have. And then you bring in your experiences and you get you. And I bring this in because then we look at, why do I crave fatty foods? Why do I, whatever it is? Well, it's probably both. It might be that you crave fatty foods because that's a fundamental biological imperative to find calories, and the more dense the calories are, the better. So, right, it could be coming some from your biology, or it could be that you had a rough, tumultuous family time, except for dessert time. That was the one time where everybody was happy, or that was what was given to you, of oh, you're having a rough time, here's some ice cream. Right? And so then maybe it's part of your experience of it's a learned pattern and behavior in there. So when we're starting to look at why you are the way we are, and that's how we start. When we shift, we're looking at sort of these two different components. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And if anybody's got questions ever, please just feel free to pipe in anytime. I think this goes back to Mike's question earlier. So change is hard. And it's hard because there's a lot of things we're unraveling in there, right? Of why do I do the things that I do? Especially when I don't want to do them, right? Overthinking, and I want to stop overthinking, but I'm thinking about overthinking more. And it's we're all rational human beings, right? I can't just decide, right, so I'm going to stop overthinking, and then 10 seconds later I'm overthinking again. I think we'd like to think that we're rational human beings, but we're really not. And there's really a lot more going on under the surface than we believe. And sometimes when we come at it from the viewpoint that just purely my thoughts about it matter, and that's a bit of change from the top down, right? I can will myself to change. But that feels about getting in the river and trying to hold the water back. It can work for a while, but eventually I get too tired. I'm never gonna get angry again, or snap at anybody, or be late, or whatever it is. And we're really set on it. And so we're getting in there, we're holding the water, and we're doing it, but we're really just white knuckling it, right? And then eventually screw it, I don't care anymore. And we run out of willpower, we run out of steam, and we move. And I would say the deeper approach is to what are the substructures that's making the water move in the way we want to move. And if we want to change the path of the river, then we change the belief system and structures around the path of the river so it flows that way, and life becomes this slow flowing moving process. So we're not fighting against the stream, and we're working with it. And I think a big part of that is understanding having compassion on ourselves, that we are the way we are for a reason. And more in talking about that we are not fully in control of ourselves like we think we might like to. And I think the example of a hot stove is really interesting. And what I'm bringing this in is there's more going on underneath the surface than you think. And to Mike's point in the very beginning of there, I don't feel emotions, right? What he said he used to feel or used to think. And what I hear in that is I'm not aware of my emotions. I'm a rational human being that's in control, and I make my own things and I don't get emotional. You're just not aware of how you are feeling emotions and how they are impacting you. And I think a great couple of examples of this kind of like subconscious system that's working in there is a hot stove, right? You touch a hot stove or you grab something and grab a hot plate, and that thing is on the ground before you can even think about it, right? You don't grab a hot plate, think, oh, this is hot, like I should put this thing down, and then you go put it down. Like there's another system that kicks in and flings this thing out of your hand before you even get there. There's a faster system that's at work. Like emotions, the question is here, like, did you choose to have that emotion? Someone said something and it made you angry or made you feel anxious, or you're in a situation that makes you feel like, did you logically choose to have that or feel that, or did that just occur? And if it occurred, like who chose to bring that out? And we'll talk about emotions and like how they kick up. And there's sort of a system that's running underneath, and it's really always, am I safe or am I not safe? And it's guiding you either towards or away from this particular thing that it recognizes as a threat. But why does it recognize it as a threat? Probably has to do with your past experiences. And I think there's another interesting thing of like, well, we talked about being connected with yourself. There were some great questions in the beginning. It was liking myself, knowing what the right thing to do is, viewing myself in a different way, right? And what is myself? Like, who am I? Like, if I lost my foot, would I still be me? Yeah. Probably most people would say yes. Okay, well, what about both my legs and both of my arms? Would I still be me? Yeah, okay, great. So maybe I'm something to do with my head in here. Well, what if I lost my memories? Would I still be me? What if I got hit on the head and I had a radical changes of my preferences or my personality? I've always hated spicy food, and suddenly I love spicy food. I was always an indoor, love to read a book at night, and now I want to go out all the time. Would I still be me? When I say me, what is it that I'm talking about? Is it my behavior? Is it my emotions? Is it my thoughts? If I have a thought, like, is that me? Are my thoughts me? Or my emotions me? Or my memories me? Like, what is this me that I'm talking about that I think is right or wrong or good or bad or should be different or should be better? Great. If you're wondering what the picture of the little baby there is, I think to Mike's point in the beginning of like, oh, I don't really feel much emotion. If we hook you up into a machine, and I worked with a neuroscience center for quite a while and got to do a lot of work where I can be reading brainwaves and seeing what's going on with people in an incredibly fascinating study that we might be able to talk about more later. But if you hook up people up to one of these machines and watch a video, and we flash that little baby's face in there, which is typically evokes emotion for people. A face is something that triggers some deep neurological stuff within us. And we can flash it faster than you can consciously recognize it. So you won't recognize, you're watching some video of something that's fairly benign, and this flash is in there, and you won't recognize it. You won't consciously remember seeing it, but we'll see in your neurophysiology a big spike of fear or sadness or anger or something else in there. So part of what I'm saying is life is complex, and when we're talking about making changes, what are we really talking about? I think most of the time we're talking about like change, like I'm going to make a change in a diet. I'm going to work out 5 days a week and I'm never going to eat sugar again or whatever it is. And then 5 days later, that whole plan's out the window and we're back to eating sugar every single night. Like, well, what happened? Well, you're probably just too weak, right? You just weren't strong enough. You just got to push that river harder. Just keep holding that river. And it's not to say that that's always the wrong way. Sometimes you got to push against the river until you can figure it out. But kind of like Mike said, when he said, he paused. When head, heart, and gut is not there, he pauses. So now when you're finding yourself fighting against this river, I'd say pause. And this is what mindfulness and awareness of like, what is really going on in here? Why am I feeling this draw and this need to eat sugar so desperately? Maybe it connects back in with, right, because I have no joy in my life. And the only joy that I have is when I get home and eat my favorite ice cream bar at 10:30 at night when I'm finally done and the kids are asleep and nobody needs anything for more. And this is the thing that's just for me. And I look at that as an entirely rational human being, entirely reasonable. Like, right, if I had no joy in my life, or I had such stress in my life that this 10 minutes of joy eating this ice cream bar at the end of the day was all that I had, I'd say that's pretty reasonable. I was about to say pretty reasonable because that's the way it is. And I'll just say that because that's what it is to me. And suddenly it's not that we're lazy or we're dumb or we're stupid or we don't have the willpower. It's maybe that there's something else going on deeper in life. And go ahead and go to the next slide. And when we're talking about change, you're like, I just need to try harder. Oh, I tried and I'm not good enough or I failed. And that means I'm a failure and I'm not good thing. Oh, perfect. There we go. Yeah. I put up this slide here of you're not an idiot, right? Because I think you're like, oh, I'm just an idiot. I did that thing again that I said I wasn't going to do and that I know is harmful and destructive. And it's like we can look at ourselves like, yes, I'm just an idiot. Or I'm no good. Or that's just the way I am. I guess I'm just a broken human being. Or we could say, or maybe you're a human being that's trying to survive and eating an ice cream bar is maybe better than the alternative. And I'd say the things that you do, warts and all, the things that you like, the things that you don't like, the things that you hate about yourself are all there for a reason. And when we are constantly in judgment of ourselves, it actually gets in the way of really understanding. You're judging yourself for being weak, will-powered, for eating that ice cream bar again, or getting angry again, or whatever it is. We're probably not getting down to the root of what's really going on. Why do I not have joy in my life? Why are things making me so angry all the time? And I can work on the level of stop being angry, or I can dive into why do I feel so angry? Stop eating ice cream or overthinking or whatever it is for you, or what is going on that I feel that I need that so desperately, even though I want to be healthy and I want all of these things and logically it all makes sense. But when this moment comes, I just don't care about that anymore. I think judgment of ourselves actually gets in the way of change. And I think sometimes we start to shame ourselves and, oh, I'm just an idiot. It's just the way I am, all that sort of stuff. And it's not. Life is complex. There's a lot in there. And I come from the viewpoint of probably what you're doing is makes sense. You're not doing this to be destructive. You're not doing this to hurt yourself. You're not doing this because you're an idiot. You're not doing this because you're broken. Probably a really good reason why you're doing it. And when you can step back from the place of judgment to accept and allow those things to come in and those parts of you to speak to you that say, I am so desperate and lonely that this thing is more important than anything else in the world to me right now, then you can hear that. And when you can hear that, you can understand that, you can embrace and love that, then you know yourself, you can start to love yourself and figure out a different way and path forward. Okay, one of the things of why it makes it hard, you have to exhale before you can inhale. And sometimes moving to this new way of being requires us to let go of the old way of being first. And that can be really hard because I've built these things up. I am this way because it's how the system works. Like, then to make one small tweak and change, man, we're like, oh, it's just an ice cream bar, but hey, just that ice cream bar can change a whole lot of stuff in here. And there's this, oh, cool, I had to put it, liminal space. That's this super scary, awkward, uncomfortable place of letting go of the old to make room for the new. And the monkeys come to my mind of like there's this trap. I don't remember where it's at exactly, but you've got some sort of nut or food, and there's like a hole, and the monkeys can reach their hand through the hole, and then they grab on, and then they can't let go to when they pull this out, even to the point where the hunters are coming and knock them out and trap them. And so it's this trap of their own device. And I think that's a bit of the same of what happens in here. Like, I know this way of being isn't the way that I want to be, and it's awful. And yet I can't let go because of the fear of who will I, at least I know who I am now. At least I know this doesn't work well, but it kind of works. And what would I be if I'm not that? And just sometimes the sheer terror of it keeps us holding on to the thing that we actually don't really want. And I put that out there to just acknowledge that, like how hard that is, and how I'm honoring the difficulty that it is to reach those spaces. And the liminal spaces, I'm no longer this, but I'm not yet that. And I'm this space in between that I'm a little bit rudderless, floating, don't yet know what I am. And I think our breath is such a beautiful example of we can't get another breath until we exhale and let that other breath out. So I'm going to talk just a little bit how to change the patterns in your life that no longer serve you. And I think I put that way there for a very reason. So it's not how to not be a bad person, how to do the right thing, how to quit being all these things, but how to change the patterns that were there because they served you. Everything you do in life, you're doing because it served you in some way or another. Eating junk food, like you know it's not bad, but you keep doing it anyways, even after you learn. And so you're not doing it to be harmful or destructive to yourself, but you're doing it because it brought you something good at some point. And this concept of breakthrough, like, oh, I had such a breakthrough, like the word is so powerful, like breakthrough, like something has to break in order for something new to come through. You can't read it. The opposite says change is hard, change is possible, and it's worth the journey. There's a lot in here, and we won't be able to get to this in 5 minutes. I'll talk until we are out of time. Part of this change is getting comfortable with the things that make us uncomfortable. A bit of why I slowed us down so much in that space. So to make room for things slowed us down in the beginning, to make room for those things that we've been kind of pushing down on the way to come up to the surface. And a lot of times that means slowing and quieting ourselves to allow that to come. The change that we seek is often in a place that we don't want to go, in a place that are things that we are not comfortable with. And that's why we haven't done it yet. And I put a dragon guarding a treasure here, because I think it has to do something with our mythologies, that like the treasure is always guarded by this dragon, right? Like, of course it is. And I think it's something like the treasure that you seek is guarded by this dragon. This dragon is the thing in your life that makes you feel uncomfortable, that you don't want to move through and you don't want to do it. When you do, the treasure waits for you on the other side. That part of yourself that you are not comfortable with, you become comfortable. And it's not the defeating of the dragon is not the goal. It's not the purpose. It's who you become in preparation as you become a person that is capable of defeating a dragon is the treasure. What I'm saying is that there's no cheating your way through this one. You can't get someone else to slay the dragon for you, because then another dragon will come, and if you didn't slay it, then you don't know how to slay it. But when you slay the dragon, you become the dragon. And now you are capable of holding on to this treasure. I think the last thing that I'll share is a Qigong master that I worked with that had like profound documented healings of medical issues and really, really well-documented powerful things. And he stopped healing people. was really interesting is he said, I take these things away. If people come to him with cancer, all these medical conditions, and he heals them. But then a year, 2 year, 5 years later, it comes back because they didn't figure out what it was that they were doing that was causing that. And he said, I'm healing people, but I'm not really healing people. All I'm doing is delaying the inevitable. And unless they walk the path, if they learn, they slay the dragon, then they don't become the person that is healed. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and judgment of ourselves gets in the way of change. So if you can do one thing, I'd say just sit back and observe yourself. Stop criticizing and judging yourself and just simply be, and look at yourself in a way that you would look at an intelligent being and be like, well, they're doing this thing for a reason. I wonder why. And just be curious and just allow. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I think there's a couple points I might try to hit quickly. There was a super interesting study on people quitting smoking and mindfulness. And there's lots of ways, and this is the top down versus bottom up of I can give you all the strategies and we can move through lots of different things. And there's lots of different ways to approach problems. And I do both, right? Yeah, top down. Great. Let's do the breath work. Maybe you're not sleeping because you're not exercising, you're not eating well, or maybe you're not sleeping because there's, deeper things going on in there. And so we work on kind of both sides of like the physical component level and, the deep bottom level. And the study on mindfulness and quitting smoking was like telling people, don't quit smoking. Like just become hyper aware of everything. When does the craving come? Like just notice it. What is the feeling and the sensation that happens when you take your first puff of the cigarette? What happens afterwards? And like just moving through this, and they're like, actually, don't quit smoking. Just keep smoking. Just become very, very curious and aware of the whole thing as it goes. And there's more to it, and maybe we'll talk about this study more later. But it had a higher result of people quitting by just simply becoming mindful and aware of what it was doing in their body and how it was that they're experiencing their body. And we look at it something I shouldn't be doing, then we cut ourselves off from this, and it's like this war between different parts of ourselves, essentially, and as opposed to bringing all of them in on awareness. All right, there's a whole lot more we can talk about, but I know we are about out of time. So I'll just bring in a great place to start is just right there, just becoming aware of loving and knowing yourself this month. If you would like to do some one-on-one training together, the links have been sent out, and that's a great place to start as well. And I think the last slide you can move to, yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. It's not about just fixing the thing. Maybe quitting smoking is the thing for you, right? Maybe that's a thing. And if someone can wave the magic wand and make you quit smoking, it would probably be something else if you didn't go through the process yourself. Maybe it's not smoking anymore, but something else that pops up in your life. And so going through this journey, as much as it sucks, as much as it's hard, is the same thing as like the exercise. It's not a one-time thing that happens. It's a journey, just like the physical transformation that happens when someone decides they want to get fit. It's a journey of a mental transformation that happens when someone decides they want to get mentally fit. And if you would like to work together, I would love to work with you. And you have the means to do that in there. Any other questions for feedback, for things you want to talk about more, topics you want to hit? I would love to hear. I think the right avenues were Stacy or the chat or email, or I'm sure you guys got it. So we got questions right now. Go ahead and ask them. But if anything comes up for the next month of like, this is the stuff going on with my life, you can email me personally, or you can email Stacy or whatever the right company contact is for, hey, what we want to talk about next month.
Excellent. Thank you, Travis. It was amazing. Great content. And so again, we'll keep doing these series. We'll do one a month for 5 months or 10 months or however long we keep people's interest and we stay interested, right? And where we feel the subject is at least covered. And that's really exciting. But I think this was a great kickoff, and I really appreciate it. And everybody click on that Calendly link. And if you're having trouble with that, get with me, get with Stacy. It's pretty easy. You click on that and you go pick a date, and it automatically has it on your calendar and on Travis's. And then you can, if that date doesn't work for you, you can get in there and change it yourself. So that is an elegant way to get a hold of Travis. And again, very powerful, and you get to decide exactly what you want to talk about during that time. And I look forward to the next session with Travis, and I look forward to the recordings coming out. And if anybody has any ideas of the content, like Travis says, this is for you. So you get to help us lead and drive the content. And it's much more interesting when you're engaged, like Paul said. Please jump on and have a conversation with Travis online. That's a lot more interesting for people to watch. And I know not everybody's comfortable with that, but those of you that are, absolutely, that's great. And Travis loves that, and so does everybody that's watching. So, and
well, I'll tell you, Travis, I enjoyed the whole fact that we think of things like, and you'll appreciate this, Mike, the whole Dan Sullivan, the problem isn't your problem, the problem is how you're thinking about the problem. And when you look at like something like smoking or too much ice cream or the candy bar, it's nice to be able to just take a few minutes, exhale, go back and go, is the problem really at the candy bar, or is the problem what's getting me to the candy bar? And so I appreciated that deeply. I think that's a good message for all of us.
Cool. Good. I'm really excited to have got to know everyone here and be here, and really looking forward to next month where we get to talk more.